You won't believe these 5 times the lottery was rigged. From using a system glitch to bribing and blackmailing others, these mind-blowing stories sound unbelievable, but we guarantee they're absolutely true. Number 5. Chinese welfare lottery scam. A Chinese lottery ticket seller in Anshan, Heilongjiang province got a life sentence for rigging. This guy was super smart and spotted a problem in the system. Then he used the flaw to help him buy 28 million yuan worth of illegal winning lottery tickets. That's $3.76 million. It was 2005 when Zhao Likun found a glitch in the welfare lottery 3D system. It was simple. He noticed that for 5 minutes after the draw, the lottery machine still issued tickets. In other words, if he watched the draw to learn the winning numbers, he'd have a small window that allowed him to buy a ticket with those numbers. That guaranteed him a win. So what did he do after that? Well, he took advantage of the whole situation and bought tickets with the winning numbers many times. It helped that he owned 3 stores with lottery machines, meaning he was ready to issue a ticket for himself as soon as the numbers were revealed. But he was not alone in reaping the benefits of this lucrative scheme. Zhao asked his neighbors and friends to purchase tickets at the welfare lottery center, and he even told them to give him the money. However, this did not go on for long. The lottery center soon realized that the prices were wrongly claimed, and they started to investigate. Ultimately, the police found the mastermind, and they arrested Zhao. As his trial ended, he was sentenced to life imprisonment. And as if that wasn't bad enough, the judges ordered the police to take all of his property. Now, it's unclear if his neighbors and friends faced charges as accomplices or not, but there are high chances that they won't escape without consequences. But a lot of people feel that's an unfair sentence for someone who simply took advantage of a mistake the lottery made. Zhao's attempt to exploit a system glitch for financial gain was no match for the next scandal, which involved a betting pattern. Number 4. Pennsylvania's 666 fix. You might have heard about the 1980s Pennsylvania's lottery rigging. Most people call it the 666 fix. The culprits behind this scheme wanted to cheat the daily number, a 3-number game. So they made most balls heavy, but not the ones with 4 and 6 on them. This would help them to get a result that would likely be combinations of 4s and 6s. They were fortunate enough when their plan finally worked on April 24, 1980. They finally got the number 666, one of the combinations they were hoping for. But this strange betting pattern made people notice that something fishy was going on. The strategist behind the plan went to jail, and most of the money they won unfairly was never given out. Let's talk about the main character of the whole project and how they made it all possible. Nick Perry was the central character of this idea. He was the announcer for the Daily Number and had started hosting the Pennsylvania Lottery's live show in 1977 at WTAE. But he was not alone in the scam. In fact, he had an entire team to help him out. Nick first shared his plan with Jack and Peter Maragos, who were his business partners dealing in vending machines. After that, he talked to Joseph Bach, an expert in lettering from Pittsburgh and WTAE's art director. Nick wanted Joseph to make fake lottery balls that looked like the real ones. And during the discussion, they came up with the idea to pick number 4 and number 6 as the lucky lighter balls. However, their flawless plan seemed to fall short. Why? Well, you see, it was not possible to successfully execute things without the help of an insider. So, Nick contacted 2 people he thought would agree to help him: Edward Plevel and Fred Lumen. Edward was the lottery official who had access to the room where the machines and balls were kept. The room had 2 keys, one of which was shared with Nick. They needed one more person on their side, the WTAE stagehand Fred Lumen. Fred was given the duty to change the original balls with the weighted ones twice. He would need to do that once before and once after the drawing to avoid any suspicion. And then it was Joseph's turn. He was responsible for taking the rigged balls back to his studio, where he would burn them in a paint can once the drawing was done. It seemed like a brilliant plan. Finally, it was time for the big day. On April 24th, 1980, Nick hosted the Daily Number. That day, the number 666 came up in the draw, leading to a massive prize of $3.5 million, which is around $12.4 million today. 8 people on Nick's team managed to grab $1.18 million from the winnings. But the 6 million people in Pennsylvania watching the game had no clue that the game was rigged. Soon, people started questioning because a lot of tickets were bought for all 8 possible number combinations. Plus, a few players suddenly claimed a big chunk of the winnings. That was $1.18 million from the $3.5 million jackpot. Do you know what gave them away? The Maragos brothers. They went around Pennsylvania on the date of the drawing and bought a huge number of tickets. And they didn't just purchase any tickets, they bought the ones with 8 possible combinations using the numbers 4 and 6. The investigation started when someone gave an anonymous tip. It came from a bar near Philadelphia where the brothers bought the lottery tickets. A worker at the bar remembered them. They came in with a platinum blonde lady, and they bought all the tickets with those numbers. Moreover, the Maragos brothers were not subtle at all. That was their big mistake. While the worker printed the tickets, one of them used a payphone. He spoke in a different language and even held up the phone so the person on the other end could hear the lottery machine printing the tickets. All of this was more than enough to set off alarm bells. The investigation team was onto them. They used the phone records and found something interesting. The call was traced back to the WTAE-TV announcer's booth in the studio where the draw happened. This made Nick Perry look like a suspect. They took the Maragos brothers in for interrogation, and they admitted during the questioning that he did talk to Nick in Greek. This was a big piece of the puzzle. As they kept digging and questioning, they found out about the other people involved. A guy named William Moran from Fairmount, West Virginia, set up buying lottery tickets from outside the state for an illegal numbers game. The investigation team also found out that the Maragos brothers made bets on those 8 numbers with local bookies. These bookies ran illegal games using the lottery draw results. But the brothers had made another mistake. They shared the numbers with their friends and family. That soon became another one of the reasons why the scheme fell apart. It's pretty obvious, isn't it? If too many people are betting on the exact same numbers, it's gonna look fishy. One thing led to another, and ultimately, the police caught the whole team. A grand jury got together, and all 7 people were charged. Edward Plevel had to spend 2 years in prison. Joseph Bach, Fred Luman, and Willie Moran pleaded guilty and received shorter sentences. But surprisingly, the Maragos brothers did not go to jail. And how did this happen? Well, turns out they decided to testify against their buddy Nick Perry. They made a deal in exchange for their testimony that meant they got off scot-free. Plus, they also handed over a big chunk, the $1.8 million, and some of the lottery tickets as well. But what happened to Nick Perry after that? Well, let's just say that things were not looking good for him. On May 20th, 1981, he was convicted of several crimes: criminal conspiracy, criminal mischief, theft by deception, rigging a publicly exhibited contest, and lying under oath. And he was sent behind bars for 7 long years. He did 2 years in State Correctional Institution, Camp Hill, and then another year in a halfway house in East Liberty, Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. After that, he stayed on probation until March 1989. Once he got out of prison, he tried different jobs and even made an unsuccessful attempt to get back into broadcasting in the late 1980s. He then passed away in Attleboro, Massachusetts on April 22, 2003, without ever admitting any role in the scheme. However, after the whole scandal, the Pennsylvania Lottery and other drawings became cautious and took extra steps to prevent cheating. On June 29, 1981, they moved the lottery drawings from WTAE to WHP-TV in Harrisburg. The governor ordered this change, and they also hired a security chief. This was done for background checks on all drawing-related staff. Finally, in 2009, the lottery went back to airing on WTAE. Unlike Nick Perry, whose well-thought-out plan failed, the next group's rigging strategies continued for 10 years. Number 3. Dominican Republic's decade-long rigging. This shady business started in the late 1980s and continued for a whopping 10 years. It took place in the Dominican Republic, where a whole team of insiders was involved in rigging the lottery and capitalizing off it. The scam was simple. The insider team was simply arranging which numbers would be drawn in advance. There were so many people involved that nobody realized it was happening. Finally, a mistake was made. A rigged drawing was botched live on TV. It raised enough suspicion that an investigation was started. This is how their cover was blown. After that, many people started questioning if the lottery was fair or not. Finally, the police caught the people behind it. But by that time, they had already made about $7 million from their illegal scheme and used it in political election campaigns. A decade is a long time to get away with a crime. The next mastermind on our list was almost as successful. He was involved in 5 different fraudulent drawings. Number 2. Hot Lotto Fraud by Eddie Tipton. Eddie Tipton worked as an information security director at the Multi-State Lottery Association. He was fond of playing the game called Hot Lotto, and surprisingly, it was one of the games his company ran. In this game, you guess 6 numbers to win. However, the odds of winning it are rare, 1 in 11 million. Now, Eddie's job was to make sure things were safe. That meant he could not buy tickets as it was against the rules. But when you're rigging the lottery, those kinds of rules go straight out the window. As part of his job, Eddie was the one who wrote the computer software that chose the winning numbers. One day, someone joked that he could add any number he wanted to, and an idea was planted. Eddie programmed the computer to switch from the random number generator to a much smaller group of numbers on specific days, giving him a 1 in 100 chance to win. Then, all he needed to do was buy 100 tickets, one with each possible winning combination, guaranteeing him a jackpot win. He managed to cheat 5 times in 10 years. You're probably thinking, how much money did Eddie make from the whole process? Well, let's break down the numbers for you. He first won the Colorado jackpot in November of 2005 and got $4.8 million. Next year, he managed to rake in $568,990 from the Texas jackpot. In 2007, he took a stash of $783,257 from the Wisconsin jackpot. And 2010 was his lucky year. He made $15,402 2 times through the Kansas jackpot. The Iowa jackpot made him a millionaire once more with a jaw-dropping $16.5 million. His last win was from the Oklahoma jackpot in 2011 with $644,478. Between the start of Eddie Tipton's cheating and his eventual capture, 10 years had passed. During that time, he managed to collect over $23 million. But his downfall was near, and it began in 2010. A man wearing a hood walked into a Quick Trip store in Des Moines, Iowa, before Christmas. He bought soda, hot dogs, and some lottery tickets. 6 days later, the winning numbers for a $16.5 million jackpot were announced. The ticket was bought at a Quick Trip. However, no one came forward to claim it. A year later, a law firm from Des Moines arrived just before the deadline, claiming the prize for a trust linked to a Belize corporation. The president of that corporation was Philip Johnston, who had previously tried to claim the prize. But the Iowa lottery launched an investigation instead of handing over the money. 2 years later, District Attorney Rob Sand took over the case and learned about Eddie's brother Tommy and his illegal lottery win in Texas. Tommy had already taken that prize home, and that trail led them to Eddie Tipton. When he was caught, everyone wanted to know about how he tricked the system. Eddie explained how he did it and that he only used that code on certain days, like holidays. Those were the days when he was off duty. Eddie Tipton agreed to a deal and got up to 25 years in prison. Plus, he had to pay back $2.25 million for his fraud in many states, even though he said he only kept $350,000. Eddie Tipton's offense resembled a white-collar activity. The guy was bored and wanted to test if he could get away with it. If he'd stopped at just 4 wins, he probably would have gotten away with it. It's definitely one of the smartest scams in lottery history. At number 1, we have a rigging story that was all down to overestimating the lottery system. Number 1. Italy's blindfolded tots scandal. In 1999, an incident took the news by storm. There were reports circulating about a lottery rigging scandal in Milan, Italy. Back in the day, the Milan Lotto had a pretty unique system for choosing winning numbers. They used blindfolded children to pick the numbered balls. Apparently, they thought that this method seemed fair and free from cheating. But crooks, cheaters, and gang members found ways to cheat by messing with the ball. Yep, they would even pay the kids to peek through their blindfolds. But how did they make all of this possible? Well, the gang would mark the balls by heating them, freezing them, or even covering them in super shiny varnish that could be seen through the blindfolds. This would help the kids who were bribed to easily spot which ones to pick from the spinning drum. This continued for 5 years, from 1995 to 1999, and as a result of this, the Milan Lotto lost a staggering $174 million. But soon, people found out about the Milan Lotto rigging, so the sales of lottery tickets went down in Italy. Now, to fix this drawing problem, the suggestion for switching to a computer system popped up many times. This would have reduced the chances of cheating as the computer would pick random numbers automatically. However, the authorities turned down their request. They suspected that powerful people might have been connected to the Milan Lotto scandal, and they could get access to the computer's algorithms and numbers. This would lead to even more problems. So, how was the crackdown mission successful in arresting the people involved? The authorities made a foolproof plan. First, they looked into the kids who were helping with the rigging process. That led them to discover a pattern. They found out that many of the young teenagers were related to tax officials who were supposed to make sure the lottery was fair. So, the authorities arrested 3 tax inspectors as they were the leaders of this 5-year plan. All 3 of them were charged with criminal association and blackmail. But things did not end here. When the authorities investigated the matter further, they found 6 more people linked with the group, and they were also arrested. 3 of them admitted to being part of a criminal gang from the city of Paris. These 3 people were involved in a scheme to blackmail the officials and keep the rigging going. The other 3 people also had a role in the scam, even though they were not closely connected to the gang. They still blackmailed and bribed the officials. When the police in Cinisello Balsamo started digging into things, they noticed that a lot of local residents were also winning prizes at surprisingly high rates. This raised more suspicions, and they seized $1.2 million in fraudulent winnings. The police decided to widen the scope of the investigation as they saw this as a wider network. As a result of this incident, the public became doubtful of the lottery, and they stopped purchasing tickets. That was another big problem. So the authorities decided that it was best to use computer systems to get their business back running. Lucky for them, it all worked out in the end. Greed always gets the better of a person. And it's not just the case with rigging. In fact, disputes happen all the time when a lottery is involved. This is our list of the biggest lottery disputes of all time. Some of these are guaranteed to blow your mind.